Hi and welcome to the Surf Academy UK podcast. I'm your host Ross James. This podcast is to help surfers of all levels up their game through coaching and training. All our guests have extensive experience in the industry and can offer great advice and guidance. So whether you're a beginner, weekend warrior or just love to be in the water, follow us on this journey and don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay stoked and stay healthy. Welcome back to another episode. Today I'm joined with Chris Thompson. So his name's all over the place. There's a few ventures in the past. I'll let Christian sort of introduce yourself.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for having me. My name's Chris Thompson. Yeah, wear quite a few different hats actually. At present, I'm the managing director of Wavelength, Wavelength Magazine, Turnover Surf Shop, Marwick Marketing, and now the UK Surf and Skate Expo.
Amazing, yeah. Busy guy. Very busy guy. So I did see you guys taking the reins on Wavelength. How long have you had that now?
We took ownership of Wavelength about 10 months ago, late spring 2024.
Nice. And how's that going? Obviously, it's the Wavelength Magazine's been around for quite some time now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's been around since 1981. We're actually pretty much the same age.
Oh, wow.
It was the summer of 81. No, it's going really well. We have a brilliant editor, Bella, first female editor, and it's 43 years of existence. We just hired Jason Locke, former Surfline, European Surfline content editor for the digital side of things. And we've just published our first issue, which is Wavelength issue 266. And we're already working on the summer issue 267. Which will come out right before Boardmasters and the Expo. So yeah, all going really well.
Amazing. Little weekend warrior claim to fame. I managed to get a shot in there on one of the Ticket to Ride errant trips back in 2014, I think.
Nice.
Pretty stoked as a surfer from Southampton to somehow make it into a surf magazine. Yeah, a little left-hander slab on the north coast of Spain. One of the
oh, nice. I have to dig that out. We've got pretty much every single issue to the left of me in the office. So I'll find out. I'll go find that after this and take a look.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, to be honest, like I was slightly out of my depth at the time, but thankfully had Hayden Wright on the trip who gave me a few little tips, and obviously Max was there. And yeah, it was a bit bigger than I was expecting. I'd been working in the gym all year, not really had that much chance to surf, and then suddenly we're into some head and a half chunky size waves. It's like, right, time to get involved. But yeah, so that's good. Let's jump into a little bit about the Expo, because this is quite new, isn't it? Like we've spoken about, I'm quite excited to sort of get involved and even just turn up and see something like this, because the UK hasn't had anything like this for a long time, has it?
No, it's not. The UK hasn't had a surf trade show or expo for about 15 years. So we just felt that as an extension of what we were doing at Wavelength and Longboarder, we just felt like we were in a great position to be able to fill that gap and bring together the different surfing and skateboarding communities around the UK for a long weekend in September in Newquay, and put on something that is kind of more core to the sports, and that's what we've done.
Amazing. And how many people do you expect to be, or hoping to be, turning up?
Over the 3 days, we're looking at about 10,000 people.
It's going to be incredible. So can you...
Yeah, it's going to be busy.
I don't know if it's a bit early to say, but can you sort of let the listeners know what they can sort of expect from this?
Yes, I can do. So it's multi-venue. So we have an expo hall, and in that hall, you can expect to see keynote presentations from the likes of Sean Thomson, 1977 world champion, Andrew Cotton on riding massive waves, panel discussions from like Surf Girl magazine. So lots going on in the expo hall throughout the weekend. It's also home to the Wavelength UK Surfer Awards on the Friday night. Just next to the expo hall outside is the Expo Village. That's where all the brands are exhibiting. We have about 100 exhibitors. We have a 32-foot long, 8-foot high half pipe. We have a 40-foot wide cinema screen that will be showing surf and skate films throughout the weekend. Food and beverage, obviously, bar, and then just a few minutes away is Concrete Waves, one of the best skate parks in the UK. We're working with GB Skateboarding to put on one of the English national titles. And then we also have a 80s themed ride or die bowl contest, which should be pretty fun. And then surfing wise, there's a couple of events that it might be a little bit too early to say, but there's 2 surf events that are going to happen over that weekend that will be pretty awesome to see. So lots going on.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. Absolutely frothing to see that. So obviously we know you got Wavelength Magazine, but you guys have been running Longboard Magazine for a while now as well, haven't you? How's that going?
That's going well. We're working on volume 3 at the minute. Sam Bleakley's done an amazing job again of pulling together some incredible content from around the world. So that's in its design phase. That will come out in May this year. So that's found its place. We ship those globally across US and through Europe, and it's really well received. But it's a magazine. It's kind of more of a book, to be honest. But that Longboarder's done really well.
Amazing. Yeah. A friend of mine, Sam, bought a copy in, I think it was the first issue that you guys had sort of done, and it was nice to see how far it's come, but still retained the old school vibe from like the originals back in sort of your 80s, 90s, and just seeing the modern day surfers, but you still got that old school classic look, feel, and sort of story vibe as well. It's amazing. Now, on top of all that, you do a bit of competing as well on a longboard.
Well, used to. I did a little, I guess, over the last couple of years, but probably won't this year, just because the weekends are pretty precious these days. So yeah, definitely competed loads when I was a bit younger, and then competed a little bit when we first moved back from Canada to Newquay. But yeah, maybe not so much going forward.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, can you give a little bit of an idea what it's like to sort of compete as a surfer in the UK, just for maybe the Groms that are coming through and are interested in sort of getting involved?
Yeah, I would, starting out again, I would try and do as many as you can. The Christian Surfers put on a good one. You've obviously got the BLU, English Nationals, Smooth Movers if that comes back, and then even just some smaller regional ones. I saw Bantam now have a pretty good surf club, and they're putting on regional events as well. So I'd just do as many as you can. It's quite different to free surfing. So being able to practice those kind of like quick 15, 20-minute heats is invaluable. And the only way you get that experience is by doing as many as you can.
That's it. I'm not a competitive surfer by any means, but I've done the last 2 contests down at the stable, Bristol, just for a bit of a giggle, and the fact that you can sort of spend a little bit of like a small amount of money and get Fistral to yourself for 20 minutes, and a t-shirt or a mug thrown in. So, and it was a bit of fun, and it was surprising. Like for me, if I go out for a surf, I'm probably looking at an hour and a half, 2 hours, like a lot of people. But even if I do a warm up on the beach, for me to find my rhythm, it's probably still going to be a good 4 or 5 sets, half an hour just to get going. And obviously in a competition, you need to go in ready. You don't really have that sort of time to sort of get going. Having one of the first or earlier heats of the day and not really getting a chance to sort of get stuck in for an hour and have a free surf before was quite a bit of a mission. I've never fully understood like the mental aspect behind competing. There's a lot more to it, like trying to keep your thoughts in one, putting the blinkers on sort of thing, isn't there? Because I think as someone that's only ever done 2, maybe 3 comps, there's a lot going on. You've got a lot of pressure on yourself, and you've got everything going on land, your regular day to day, and then suddenly you've got all this competition stuff as well. It's a little bit overwhelming. Have you got any advice on how to sort of hush the background noise?
I mean, that's a good point. Like it is competitive surfing is on the day 85, 90% mental game. Most people that are competing are of a pretty decent standard and will surf really well when they're free surfing. The difference comes with how calm you are, how strategic you are, how confident you are. Bear in mind that a lot of the time you unlike free surfing, you're not choosing when to surf. And unfortunately, you can have a longboard contest and it can be double overhead onshore, low tide fistral. And so normally you'd probably pass that up or jump on a different board. So that preparation is really important as well. So being able to surf in a variety of ways, not just fun, easy ways. But I think again, it just comes down to experience and whatever that looks like for you. If you've done 5 contests, that's good. If you've done it for the last 15 years, that's great as well. But I think the only way to calm the mind is to make it a place of second nature, like something that you're comfortable with. And whether that's like doing more contests or mocking and mimicking surf contest heats is enough way of doing it.
Nice. So, have you got any, in terms of prepping for the comp from a physical point of view? Obviously, you've got decades of surfing under your belt, so you've got that side of it as well. But do you do anything outside, like any gym work, any land-based training? I mean, we're of a similar age, and I know, speaking for myself, things feel like they could be wearing down a little bit. The knees aren't quite as superb as they were in my 20s. The back has its days now and again. So there's a lot more mobility from my side. Do you find anything similar?
When I was competing a lot in my early 20s, I was just surfing lots. I was in the sea like 3 times a day, and I didn't have a winter for about 6 years, so it was pretty immersed in the ocean. These days, definitely a lot more like strength core training, like trying to at least 3 times a week, just going to the gym, just doing some general core strength training, but equally like focusing on getting in the sea as much as possible. Because I think once you've surfed for a few decades, you can get fussy and miss out on a couple of days, and then a couple of days become a couple of weeks. So being really mindful that actually it's some of the best surfs you end up having are the ones where you just jump in anyway. So still making sure you're surfing as much as possible.
Yeah, it's a whole sort of, if you go in with zero expectation or low expectation, chances are you're actually going to have a really good time.
Yeah.
So, and then if you do find a little gem rolling through, then especially on a longboard, you're more prone to grabbing it when it comes through. So, is there a favourite exercise that you do, or one that you'd recommend people to try that you found works well for you? Whether that's increasing general strength or cardio.
I don't think there's one in particular. I think for the last 2.5, 3 years, we trained with Brendan more movement in Yuki, and that was brilliant. He gave us the tools to kind of look at it from a complete picture in terms of core stability, strength training, flexibility, and mobility. Which prior to that, the previous 30 plus years, I'd never even been in a gym. So having someone like that was able to kind of guide us and train us to make that second nature was invaluable.
Nice. So that's a really interesting point, and I found over the years that a lot of people have had this mentality, and to a certain point, I think it is true, but that surfing is the best thing for your surfing. From more of a physiological standpoint, obviously surfing can cause some really big imbalances. So a friend of mine, Lee, he surfed for years. He's ran a surf shop, surf school, and always surfed one way, like a lot of us do. But then that had caused some irregularities in his back. And what he actually found worked, other than a few physio exercises, was actually surfing switch. I can't remember which way round he was, but say he went from regular to goofy. And it kind of balanced it out a little bit and is a little bit more aware that doing a little bit of foam rolling, some stretching, and some general strength exercise will help keep everything where it needs to be. With the magic of hindsight and experience, if you were to go back to your 20s now, would you be more likely to incorporate some training? I'm not saying 4 or 5 sessions a week in the gym, but would you incorporate more training around your surfing?
Yeah, probably around mobility and flexibility would be, yeah.
Nice, because it is important, and everyone's been there, especially as lads when you're younger. If it doesn't fit in with what everyone thinks is the best thing, it's probably not going to get done. Whereas as you get on, you get wiser, you get a bit more switched on, and you realise, hang on, yeah, I should have probably done a few bits back then, just little and often, to build up, to help put your body in the better standpoint now.
Yeah.
So just switching it out a little bit. Obviously, you've got your hands in a few pies. There's a lot going on. Can you tell us a little bit about 10 Over?
Yeah, so 10 Over Surf Shop, we created that to support Longboarder magazine. We understood that, the print is obviously quite an expensive thing to do, particularly the way that we were doing it. And we didn't want to go down the path of creating a really nice, beautiful print product and then filling it full of advertising. So my background is digital marketing, e-commerce marketing. So we built 10 Over Surf Shop as an online shop to begin with. That grew in its first year, and then the opportunity came up to have a retail space at Lantique, which is between Newquay and Perranporth, just as a bit of a showroom. But it ended up being quite a special place, and we're just coming up to its first year of being open as a brick and mortar store. And 10 Over Surf Shop still continues to support both Wavelength and Longboarder magazine at the minute. And we also sponsor a number of local surfers, Lola Bleakley, Willow Smith, Harvey Waters, just using the shop as a bit of a vehicle to kind of support the magazine, support local surfers, and to build that as a business kind of quite slowly and organically. Obviously, retail has had a bit of a crazy 4 years. So we're coming into an industry that most people would probably avoid, but we're being just really patient and organic with our approach to it. So that's 10 Over Surf Shop.
Nice. I mean, surfing's obviously come on in leaps and bounds over the years, hasn't it? And I think you definitely got a bit of a split when it comes to surfers and money. Some just don't spend a penny, and whereas you got the other side, who you'll have a brand spanking new Slater Designs, Firewire, all singing, all dancing, everything you could possibly need, right down to multiple fin keys and 17 bars of wax. How do you see it going over the next few years? I mean, obviously with the increase in wave pools and just the publicity surfing's been getting the last few years, especially with how big the WSL has gone through Europe. I know we've lost a couple of spots now, but it seems to be getting a lot more reach. How do you see surfing over the next 5 years, and how it's going to affect sort of the local breaks, for example?
I would say probably a steady increase in participation, but nothing like we saw over the last few years with COVID. Mm-hmm. And I think actually even the COVID surfers, I think we'll see like 20-30% of those drop off the map as normal life resumes. But I think over the next 5 years, quite just a steady increase, but not as crazy as COVID. How that impacts local breaks, I mean, a little bit busier. Like it does, the main spots do get busy, but I'm speaking like down this way, Cornwall. We have some pretty big beaches and a lot of them. And once summer kicks in and we've got 12, 14 hours of daylight, it's still pretty easy to find empty waves. So I would say marginal impact on its busyness, assuming you're kind of avoiding Watergate Bay on a Saturday morning when it's 2 foot and clean. You can still find empty waves. The thing is as well, like with surfing, there's a few barriers, isn't there? There's a few hurdles. You've got to get to the beach. You've got to get the right tide. You've got to find somewhere to stay. There's lots of things.
Yeah.
Average surfer has to do. It's not like you're just booking a tennis court at 9 o'clock on Friday. So that kind of uncertainty will always keep the true number of surfers down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that helps. That is the same with the progression, isn't it? Like you say, take football, for example, you could go down the road, you can play in the garden. Sometimes, if no one's around, you can even just play against the wall. I remember as a kid in like late 80s, early 90s, we just had this full brick wall randomly built in the playground. But it was probably one of the best things they'd ever done because you had a big white rectangle painted on it for the goal. And you could just kick against it. Whereas, like you say, surfing, you can't do that. You've almost got to wait for the planets to align and everything to come together, especially if you want that magic session. But I think that's where like wave pools are going to come in useful. There's a lot of talk at the moment about the price of them, but I think once they're still in their infancy, really, I think once they've nailed it, found the optimum sort of layout, you can, if you can make that more accessible to everybody, you are going to have that divide. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be a bad divide. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I don't know. I mean, wave pools for me strip all the things that I enjoy about surfing out of surfing. So apart from the actual act of riding along a wave, like what I think makes surfing special is you're in nature, you're in the ocean, you're kind of playing a big game of chess with Mother Nature. There's the variety, there's the weather, there's the tides, there's nature. And I think wave pools, you basically strip all that out and then you're left with just the act of riding a wave. So I think they'll increase the population of surfers, but I still think not to the point where it would be a big concern to like the local beaches.
No, and that's it. I think it's going to help almost keep the breaks not necessarily emptier, but it will delay so many more people sort of going down the beach, and especially for those that work at Wayport, they live, take Bristol, for those that sort of Gloucester way and everywhere around.
Yeah.
It's probably simpler just to go, you know what, take 80 quid. I'm going to go for a surf, and have a solid hour, and carry on with my day. That's my fix for either this week, this month, depending on how flush you're feeling. And it is guaranteed.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, living back in Southampton, I can pretty much guarantee I'm going to have a couple of sessions up there this year just to get my fix in. I used to coach there, so I can have a catch up with the guys. I'll still get that social aspect like you would in the sea. But it definitely is a completely different feeling.
That accessibility, you can't deny that, like being able to book it and go do it is, there is that benefit of it being accessible, both for like people with time constraints or geographical constraints, but also mobility as well. So they have a place for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, Abu Dhabi was a bit of a interesting one, having it as the first sort of wave pool on tour. But then, I mean, we could go into loads of things with that one, especially in terms of the local sort of religion and rules and regs against people's sort of sexuality and everything else. We'll not really dive into that this episode. I personally, even though I love wave pools, I think they are a great idea. They have their place, and in terms of training progression, and even just for the average Joe, just going, you know what, I've always wanted to mimic a cutback from so and so. For kids now, probably Ethan Ewing. For me, Parko had one of the best roundhouses of all time. I could go into a wave pool and start practicing and bringing that in. But in terms of watching it as a competition, I found it. Some of it was really cool. What they were doing was amazing, but to be honest, it was. You've not got that variation, have you? Like in the sea, whereas yes, you watch pipeline. It's very similar in as much as you take off, you get barreled. You may do something at the end depending on the conditions, and you could. And it was the same with Abu Dhabi. They take off, pump, pump up, get into a little barrel. They might do an air, they might do a quick turn towards the end, but there wasn't all that much going on. Yet pipeline seems to capture your attention a lot more. Whether that's the fear factor, that there's some scary, scary coral underneath, the effort it takes to get the right wave, and all that goes on behind the scenes. I just found watching the wave pool competition a bit. I think I'd done maybe an hour. I watched a couple of heats and I sort of had it on in the background, but you lose attention. I mean, did you get a chance to watch that at all?
No, I wouldn't waste my time.
Yeah,
I
fair
just,
enough.
it's sterile. It's kind of boring. Um, it's just not. Yeah, like I surf contests in the ocean, absolutely. Like surf contests in the wave pool, I wouldn't waste my time watching it.
So I think,
I sound like
I
a
mean,
right grumpy old man, don't I?
no, I mean Portugal's on this week as well, isn't it? I was hoping to go out and do some massage, but it's by the time everything coming together, it's a bit late, which was a shame.
Yeah,
But again, Super Tube Boss, another barreling wave. It's just that bit more interesting to watch, isn't it? I mean,
well,
everything they
it's
do.
real surfing. Let's call it what it
Yeah,
is. It's real surfing. Surfing in a pool with artificial waves is not really surfing. So that's why it's more interesting in the sea, because that's surfing.
yeah, exactly. You got to read the wave. You got to position yourself right, and everything else.
Which is what makes a good surfer, isn't it? Like it's being able to read the ocean. So that's a big part of surf.
So I found for myself, like 2022, I worked at Surf Snowdonia, and then just before it died a death, and then 2023, I was up at the wave at Bristol, and I did find that. Don't get me wrong, paddle fitness was incredible in the staff session on the intermediate. Whether they're going to like me saying this or not, you've actually got an infinite setting, which works on intermediate because of the way the floor works or the wave bed. But you can just go and go and go. So quite often I take an 8-foot foamy or my longboard out because it is a super fun little wave for that. It's the only wave I'd probably surf a longboard on in a wave pool, just because it's got a really nice crisp little wall. But even with all that, as much as I was a bit of a paddle machine by the end of the season there, you get out into the sea and it's a whole different kind of paddling. It's very stop, start. Or depending on the conditions, you might have 20 minutes of pretty much solid paddling, especially if you like you said earlier at the competition, if it is pretty sizey and you're on a 9-foot plus board, that's not going to be a quick paddle out. It's
No,
very start.
but that's what, like, for me personally, that's the bit of surfing, although it can be painful, is the bit that I almost enjoy as much as the actual riding a wave. Is like you're paddling in against the ocean and you're like that ocean awareness, finding the rips, that mental challenge of not giving up if you've taken 12 waves on the head and you're still 10 feet from the beach kind of thing, that I find
Yeah,
that more
exactly.
as fascinating as the actual activity of riding a wave.
Yeah, it's a whole experience, isn't it? And that
Yeah,
a little bit of relief when you do finally make it to a lineup. You're like, oh, thank God.
yeah. Or
But
when you
that
think
on
it's
that
going to be a
next,
hell paddle out and then it actually ends up being an easy one.
yeah,
That's quite nice.
exactly. Yeah, it's the little wins. Um,
Yeah.
Speaking of like stresses and mental strength, obviously doing what you're doing at the moment with everything on your plate or multiple plates, how And I think this is where surfing can be a really good life lesson as well, and maybe on a subconscious level why a lot of people stick with it, because like you say, life can be a bit like a pot, especially if you've got a lot of things to juggle, family life, work life, everything else. As someone that's got multiple sort of businesses running, how do you sort of balance everything? Obviously, you can't always get in for a surf when you need to. It's one of those where you need to start scheduling your time off, really. How do you deal with that?
But that's an interesting question. I get asked a lot, but I actually find it really hard to answer because I mean, I look at work, what I do, the work side of things as a bit of a hobby. You know, so for number one, I don't feel like that there's like an overburden of work. It's more like there's lots of opportunity out there. And actually, if we join some dots, we can do some really cool stuff. That in it then allows that. So there's kind of still quite a bit of freedom. Like I still surf when I want because I have the freedom to do that. So I think from the outside, it looks like there's a lot. I mean, there is a lot, but it's not a chore. It's as fun as surfing. So yes, it's always a really hard question to answer.
No, I think that does answer it though, doesn't it? Like if
I'd put it this way, I'd find it way harder if I was in a normal job doing something normal. I think that would be I'd find that way more taxing than doing what I'm doing now.
exactly, and like for me, I've come back to Southampton for a while to do my sports massage course. I was going to try and do that from Cornwall, but unfortunately, the closest sort of venue they had was Bristol, and then Portsmouth. So it made sense for a year to just come back up.
Yeah.
But to do that, obviously, I've got Surf Academy UK. I'm building things online, but that is not a full-time income yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to supplement that with a regular job. Now, some of that's been working for the prison service, which didn't last long. I'd done that as a job for a few years, about 15 years ago. Not a chance. But I've now gone into selling ice cream, which is almost a little bit hypocritical. Or you could call it a really smart business strategy from the personal training point of view. But needs must, and it does what it needs to do. It allows me to do some work on a podcast, do my online stuff in between customers. It's not something I enjoy. So you've still got that, oh, I've got to get up and go to work today. If you're doing something you really enjoy, so when I come to do these comps, yes, I'm gonna have a full day of massaging people. It's quite physical, and yes, it's technically work, but if you enjoy it, that's, I reckon, over half the battle gone, probably 70% of the battle done, because you're doing something that you enjoy, and if that's going to lead to you having more freedom, why not get it done? And like they say, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So everything you do, there's going to be elements that maybe aren't your favorite thing, but if you can get the balance right with that and have 80% that you do enjoy, it gives you the freedom. Like you say, you're able to go surfing pretty much as and when. That certainly outweighs the cons.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you focus on doing something you're passionate about, or you'll ride that the inevitable kind of ebbs and flows of business work as well. Whereas if you don't have a passion for what you're doing, that's when the ebbs and flows become problematic.
Yeah, that's it. It's yeah, okay, well, brilliant. It's been absolute pleasure having you on. What I've been asking the guests is 3 pieces of advice that you would give to someone, to surfers out there, maybe, well, just generally, really. 3 things that you found have really helped you. That's for your surfing, for life in general. Any little nuggets?
Any nuggets? I mean, the obvious ones, like try and surf as much as you can, even when you think things are busy, like, or just carve out that time because you'll regret not doing it when you're 80 and you can't surf anymore. But, life gets busy, but it doesn't have to be too busy. I think just having fun. Don't take it too seriously. Like, the act of surfing is play. It's not a sport as per se. It's play. You're playing in the ocean, so have fun with it, really.
Definitely. Great piece of advice. Well, yeah, we'll leave that there for this episode. I'll grab you for a second after, but brilliant to have you on, Chris. And
yeah, thanks for
all
having
the
me,
best for the Expo and everything this year. If one
Yeah,
last
awesome.
bit,
We'll look
if
forward to
people
seeing you
want to
there
get
too.
hold of you for anything, yeah, definitely. If we want to get a hold of you, which of the many options would you say is best?
Like LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool. And that's just Christian Thompson, isn't it?
it is. Yeah.
Ideal. Well, Chris,
Nice one.
cheers, Chris, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Ross.
Hi, I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. If you're interested in anything the guest has to say today, then please have a look in the description for their links. Please feel free to like, share and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next episode.